Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Loadout Fighting Games. We are back from EVO. Mike, did you have a good time?
You could say that.
Well, today on the show we're very excited because we have Capcom community rep and associate producer on Street Fighter V. You know him, you love him, Peter "ComboFiend" Rosas. Peter, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me on the show.
So, Peter, right off the bat, before we get into Street Fighter V talk, you've been to a lot of EVOs. Give us your take. How does it stack up?
I mean, this EVO, I would have to say, was probably the biggest EVO of them all thus far. I mean, every year, the production goes up a bit. They had the screens going on, but more so, what surprised me this year was just the turnout, man. 15,000 people there. I mean, it's just fighting games,
Fighting games.
That's all I could say. I mean, 250,000 viewers watching Street Fighter. I mean, what more can you ask for?
I mean, as a fan, but also somebody who works, on arguably the most anticipated fighting game in history, how does that make you feel? I mean, what does that tell you about where we're headed? This is a show that talks esports, right? Where do you think we're headed with respects to fighting games?
Oh no, this is exciting. I mean, Street Fighter V will be coming out next year, and a lot of people are ready for that. I think there's a lot of people who watch EVO who are just waiting to jump in, but they know that the game is kind of went a bit too far, and it's really hard to catch up. It's extremely daunting for a new player. So I think that a lot of people are waiting for Street Fighter V. They're considering that the reset button. A lot of those viewers are going to become players, but then that in turn will create more viewers because they'll speak to their friends. And I mean, I think it's a glorious time right now. I mean, Street Fighter is extremely digestible. It's very easy to comprehend when you watch it. So, I mean, there's just, it's just the best time to be a Street Fighter player.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned going too far. We kind of talked about that last week. In regards to that, we've seen that there's been a buffer window added to Street Fighter V. How do you think that's going to make it easier for new players to get into the game?
It's going to make it pretty easy. In Street Fighter 4, if you can't do one-frame links and the one-frame links lead to the most damaging combos, then you're pretty much out of the game. The damage disparity between you and your opponent becomes way too high, way too quickly. So in this game, players will be able to, if they put in the practice, of course, they'll be able to access the more damaging combos for their character a bit easier. And what that means is that that'll level out the playing field a bit, and it'll become less about the combos, since people should be able to, perform them, and more about your strategy and how you address the other player. How do you approach that person?
And I had a quick question just going further than that, which is that buffer window going to be active like at all times? So will punishes also become 3 frames if something's -1, or is that just in regards to combos?
Yeah, we're trying to tie it into like links and stuff like that, but at the same time, sometimes the commands stick. So the buttons. So we're looking at implementation, and we want to tie it to just combos.
Okay.
Peter, you guys...
We don't...
Go ahead.
No, sorry. You can proceed.
Well, Peter, you guys had that big reveal. Everybody had been waiting for the first original character for Street Fighter V to come out, and you guys revealed. Well, let's get the official pronunciation of his name. It sounds like Necalli.
Yeah, it's Necalli.
Tell us a little bit about the inspiration for this character. He looks somewhere. I mean, once he does his V trigger, he looks somewhere between a Super Saiyan and the alt costume for Evil Ryu. What can you tell us about the character?
Well, I mean, more details will emerge on the character and how he fits into the game a little later, but the idea behind him is that he is an ancient warrior who's always on the search for powerful souls. Sorry, I'm combining too many words here. Powerful souls, and he's looking, just looking for the supreme challenge, and he likes to fight those who he considers strong, devour them. Things like that. And, with Street Fighter, he's seeing a ton of strong warriors, and he's coming out after them.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sounds like Akuma's Ultimate Quest, the Dark Hado Ryu, and he looks a little bit like Ryu when he goes evil. Is there, I mean, you haven't released a whole lot of story details, but is there something to be said for that connection?
Yeah, there'll be more details on his alternate persona a little later and things like that.
That's kind of exciting for me because I feel like you just described more about that character than Street Fighter 4 had story in total. So are we going to be able to look forward to Street Fighter 5 having a bit more of a fleshed out story mode like Mortal Kombat X or even the anime games do?
I mean, yeah, we definitely have some stuff in the works, and I think that you guys will definitely love what you see. But yeah, right now we're a little tight-lipped on that, so sorry for not being forthcoming with information.
Peter, you guys revealed at the panel that you'll launch with 16 characters on the roster. We put out the call to our respective fighting game Facebook groups and asked for some questions, and I got a couple here for you.
Okay, sure.
And you can answer the ones you can, and if not, we'll move on to the next one. Jesse Richmond from here in Austin asks, would it be possible to have frame data available in training mode to help determine unsafe moves?
Yeah, we're looking into that. I know that that's been a common request. Fans have, or the more hardcore fans, I should say, have been wanting frame data at their disposal for a while. Yeah, I'll have to speak with the development team about that, but I can't give a firm answer on whether it'll be available or not.
Peter, another question was, you guys brought up something that resulted in uproarious applause at the panel at EVO, that all future updates to the game, including character releases, would be free with in-game money that you can earn, the fight money. First of all, can you give us some more? Can you just reiterate that and explain that to anybody who didn't either see the panel or hear the news?
Yeah, so anything that could affect battle. So in regards to battle balance updates and things like that, the patches, those will be completely free. In regards to characters, you can grind to get in-game currency, and then you can use that in-game currency to buy the characters that you want. So anything that could affect battle balance, we want players to be able to access that. And they don't have to pay for the characters if they don't want to, if they put in enough time. As for, costumes and things like that, some may be free, some may be purchasable with Zenny. So we'll see.
I spoke with Matt Dahlgren at EVO, and he mentioned that anything that affects the game, you won't have to pay for, and that sounds great. And you can use basically the money that you earn for further updates. But is there anything other than characters that you can use that fight money for? That was a question that we got from Seth Melton.
In terms of the other content that will be included with the release, we'll have more details on that. And once we release information on that said content, then you'll know what you can use the fight money for.
Well, we have another question here for you. This is from Zach here in Austin as well. He wanted to know what was the reasoning behind the decision for the side switching at the end of rounds. He said it was a little bit confusing on mirror matches. Peter?
We just felt that it was more natural. We wanted the fight to feel just like a continuation. So when you get knocked down, you wake up. You wake up on the side that you were knocked out on. I know it is a little disorienting at first, but we think that players will definitely get used to it. The first time you see it, of course, it's confusing because it's not the traditional, a refresh. But we don't think it's necessarily. Yeah, we don't think it's necessarily all that confusing once you play it a few times.
Mm-hmm. I actually had a quick gameplay question, which was the newest character added to the build, Ken, feels extremely fleshed out. He's got his run option. He can turn into a step kick and do all these other things. And I personally felt, and this was mirrored by other people's sentiments, that a couple of the older characters, such as maybe Charlie and Chun-Li, felt perhaps a little less developed overall as characters. Do you think that's going to be a goal with the betas to find out kind of what you can add? Or am I just missing it?
No, so the primary goal of the beta is to test out the online netcode, right? That's extremely important to us this time around for Street Fighter V. We want to make sure that online play is taken very seriously moving forward. In regards to the characters feeling fleshed out, I think that what it could have been is basically it comes down to your play style. So Chun-Li actually has way more unique attacks than Ken does, and she's a footsie character. So the thing is that you're just hitting buttons, and the buttons are adding up, and you're getting damage that way. If you were looking for combos or special cancels or things like that, it may not feel as fleshed out as Ken, who can just run out of stuff and he's always in your face, because that's his thing. Every character kind of has their thing and they fit people's play styles. Same thing with Nash. Nash has a ton of target combos. So if you knew like all 8 of them, and you knew how to use his target combos into specials, into the critical art and stuff like that, he definitely feel more fleshed out. But if you didn't know what those things necessarily were, how to access them, and you're only scratching the surface of the character, then I could see why they would feel limited. I mean, with Ken, it's that you're canceling everything into a run, so you're feeling like you're extremely active and you're doing a lot. With Chun-Li, that capability is also there in regards to combos and special canceling and getting some really good damage, but I don't think a lot of people had enough time with the character to really understand that.
Yeah. Coming from Marvel and anime, I guess I'm just impatient.
Yeah, exactly. I think that Ken really fits the more aggressive player's playstyle, or the guy who likes to hit a lot of buttons and keep their mind active. Whereas Chun-Li is more for the person who is trying to think out their attack, and they're just trying to counter what the opponent's doing and really keep them out. And if you try to play that kind of game, then Chun-Li actually has, as I said, a kick for every situation. Everything she does is with purpose. And I think that those guys will really enjoy that kind of style, or that kind of character, which is what Chun-Li is.
We're getting questions here in the chat about beta access for PC. Is there anything you can tell us about that?
That it is happening in the fall. So sorry, guys, this first beta is for PlayStation users only.
Peter, I as I mentioned, I had a chance to talk to Matt Dahlgren, and one of the things he brought up in our interview, which you can see on the Daily Dot YouTube page, is that they're well aware of the reputation for the hyper, turbo, super, ultra, and that it's almost like an internal joke. I personally would feel a little bit of nostalgia for that if we missed it, if we lost it. If Street Fighter V, you get the disc or download it and you never have to buy another copy of it, when you do get to the point where you're releasing a new character or a new patch update, will there be any title changes?
Just to make sure that people are aware of the version, much like, with Ultra, it was like version 1.03, 1.04, or something like that. We'll have a indicator so that everybody is abreast on what version they're playing. But there won't be any title changes. It won't be Super Street Fighter V. It'll just be a different version.
I see. Now, Peter, the thing that you always hear is this is Street Fighter V ComboFiend edition, right? This is your game that you have a lot of input. You're an associate producer on the game. Fill us in. How much input do you actually have when it comes to decisions about the game itself?
Yeah. So in regards to that, I sat down with the development team in Japan. I flew over there, spoke with the game director. Luckily, all of us at Capcom, as an entity, are all on the same page in regards to what we want out of the game. So, luckily for me, it's not like, oh, I have to fight my way to get what I want or whatever. It's basically like I had this idea, hey guys, this is what we believe Street Fighter V should be, and then they said, oh, this is what we believe Street Fighter V should be, and all of us luckily had the exact same vision. So in essence, the game is turning out exactly as we all wanted. When it comes to the specifics on a character, our Japanese development team, they'll say, here's the core concept for the character. What do you think? And I'll chime in on that. We agreed on a lot of the V triggers, V skills, and all that stuff, and how each character kind of plays, where to categorize them. When it comes to the minutia, such as frame data, I do chime in on that here and there, but a lot of that is actually handled in Japan. I'm more of the, I definitely help out, but I don't necessarily chime in on the very, 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 very tiny details, unless, the vision strays too far from the initial concept that we all agreed upon.
Do you have like a hold up button? Hey, wait a second. This isn't working for us. We need to double think it.
Yeah, we talk about it. So we have meetings all the time. So there's never like, we agree on something and then something completely comes out of left field. It's everything is well known. There's a lot of open communication. So, with that happening on this title, it just it's just really awesome. Everything's coming together.
Do you feel pressure to get it right? I mean, the biggest change that I see is that you're trying to make it more accessible. The fear being that it would be a watered down experience. I don't personally anticipate that, but is there any fear of making it too much of a broad appeal?
Yeah, that concern is definitely there. You definitely want to make sure that the game is deep, but at the same time accessible, right? And then there's that trade-off that you get. The thing that I really like about Street Fighter, though, and I think that what a lot of the people who play the game consistently and can do everything really easily, is that they forget that, being able to pull off a Hadouken or a Shoryuken, pulling off those motions, pulling off those combos at will is in itself rather difficult, in pressure situations. When you're playing another person, there's nothing, how could I say it? It's not every person's different, so you don't have a canned experience, and I mean, I think that's where a lot of the depth in fighting games come from. It's from trying to outthink your opponent with your character, your play style, things like that. And I think that, a lot of people are sometimes they're looking for overtly complicated systems, but then, the concern there is that alienates a ton of people. So, we're trying to strike that fine line right now. We definitely want, more people to play the game, but at the same time, we're looking at ways to make the game deeper, and that's why I think the V trigger system really works, because your characters, some of their frame data may change, or their abilities might change. I mean, essentially, you have two characters, so it really adds to depth.
Going back to like balance and development, one thing I noticed when playing was Cammy, when she throws you, is left at what seems like minimal frame advantage, whereas Ryu gets to kind of walk around. Are these decisions made on purpose, or are they more just because of the animation of the move, or how does that process go about?
What we do is we think of a character type, and we say, does this really fit? Is this too strong? We constantly are messing around with the frame data internally. We're seeing what is the feel of the character. We don't want characters to feel kind of gimmicky. So we're just exploring how's the feel of the character, and do things make sense. And we look at everything from throws, dash speed, jump speed, frame data on the light attacks, medium attacks, heavy attacks, all of that.
Peter, we've been looking forward to Street Fighter V, and we're all very excited for the game to come out in approximately 7 to 8 months. But I have it on good authority that you guys are very proud of the achievement that fans consider Street Fighter IV, Ultra Street Fighter IV, to be the most balanced out of every Street Fighter IV title. What do you think will be the legacy of Street Fighter IV once we all migrate over to Street Fighter V?
I think that when, everything's said and done, I think that everybody will look back at Ultra and say, wow, that was a game where, you had to really, really learn the matchups. You really had to learn the characters. You really just had to study the game to be effective at it. And if you did that, due to how balanced it was, it's like no matter how much you studied it, you could always be kind of upset. There's always that challenge there. And that, the people were able to inspire change in the characters that they wanted, right? So I think that that'll be its lasting legacy, is that like the community helped make the game as awesome as it ended up being. And I mean, with Street Fighter V, I see something similar happening. I mean, not to say that, they're going to be able to, give exact feedback on the character right when the game drops, because they'll have to be able to play it for a while and let the meta develop, and truly see what is strong versus what is perceived to be strong, right? So
interesting. Well,
yeah.
Peter, when can we expect more news on Street Fighter V before we let you go? Character reveals or any kind of Capcom Pro Tour announcements or anything of that nature?
Well, I mean, there was just the announcement that we made for Capcom Pro Tour. There was an announcement we made during the panel that moving forward, all Capcom Pro Tour events in the West, all ranking and premier events moving forward will all be on the PS4. So be sure that if you're practicing for those events, you practice on the PS4 version. In regards to Street Fighter 5, you just have to sit tight. I'll be putting up information on Capcom community. Be sure to follow Capcom Fighters on Twitter as well. I'll be putting out tweets on my own Twitter at TheComboFiend. So, I'll let you guys know ahead of time when to expect something. Or you could always just wait for Ono-san's tweets. He's really good at giving you guys a heads up.
Some sort of heads up, that is.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to read those a couple times. Peter, when you guys reveal T-Hawk, will you come back on the show?
Yeah, if he's in the game, then, but then again, I may never be on the show again, or I might be on next week. You'll never know, right?
We'll have to wait. Peter, thank you so much for taking time. I know you guys have been on a marathon promoting the game and showing it at different places, but we appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us.
Well, thanks for having me on, Efren.
All right, man. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter.
All right, guys. Thank you, guys.
What do you think, man? I mean, I'm pretty excited for the game.
Oh, I'm really excited. I mean, I've been sitting there kind of in this, like, what I call anime void, where I've been playing these anime games, and I love them, but, like, the amount of players just isn't the same as you get with Street Fighter or Marvel, and I'm really looking back to getting into a major game again.
Mm-hmm. And you think Street Fighter 5 can do it?
Oh, if Street Fighter 4 is any indicator, then yes, it'll do that and go even further.
I find it funny that that they say the game needs to have a wider appeal, right? A bigger mass appeal.
Mm-hmm.
What game is more recognizable than Street Fighter when it comes to fighting games? But then you compare it to the bigger esports world, right? And there is that gap relative to fan bases and player bases for other games. Do you think Street Fighter 5 can bridge that gap?
Well, what he announced with the free updates and what they've announced with the focus online play is, I think, what will bridge the gap. As I've said before, the ability to play online is what gets a lot of people to play in the first place, because no one is necessarily going to travel 30 minutes an hour, pay the registration fees to go get their ass kicked in some tournament, Mm-hmm. And if they do, that might be what makes them quit. So getting to play online in like quality across these consoles is going to get people to get to the next level, and then what makes them watch and keep playing.
Matt Dahlgren is the marketing director, but he's also the director of the esports at Capcom. And I asked him about specifically that. What's going on with future online tournament events, and is that going to be weaved into the Capcom Pro Tour? And he didn't confirm or deny, but he said that those are the conversations that they're definitely having internally there at Capcom. And I suspect that that's what we'll be seeing with Street Fighter 5.
Yeah, I mean, you saw pretty hype online tournaments through Panda already. I remember Tommy Guns taunting and then losing to Justin Wong in like 12 straight rounds or something like that. It's already there, but if it's hosted by Capcom and the netcode's good enough, I don't see why it wouldn't blow up. I mean, I really think online EVO could be a thing. Mm-hmm. It's not going to replace the in-person events, but it could certainly be what gets you there. Mm-hmm. Invitational tournaments are kind of a necessity when a game gets to a certain level. Do I love an open bracket? Yes, and I hope EVO can maintain that for as long as it possibly can. But if League of Legends tournaments were open, you couldn't find a room big enough to fit all those nerds. I mean, it's just not possible. So there's got to be a way to find how to shuffle and funnel these guys into a tournament.
Yeah.
And invitationals are a lot of fun. People love Capcom Cup.
Absolutely. Speaking of EVO, we just got back from EVO.
Right.
Let's talk about those grand finals, man. How did you feel about... Before we get, you're gonna talk about Gamer B versus Infiltration later, but let's talk about the grand finals match, Momochi versus Gamer B.
I mean, I believe Gamer B had beat Momochi fairly badly last year at EVO. So going into this, despite Momochi definitely having the momentum of winning Capcom Cup, winning various tournaments, and being maybe the favored player to win EVO, I had thought Gamer B would have a solid shot, and it ended up being a pretty close grand finals.
Heartbreaking. I was watching Gamer B, and here I'm going to play some video that I have. Well, first of all, let me put up this image here. I think this says it all. This is Gamer B post defeat, and Infiltration comes over and hugs him, and my heart was going out to him. In the back, you see the relief. An otherwise almost always composed Momochi. Right. You could tell that the emotion was leaving him. Here we have them up on the stand, and that says it too.
Oh, Bruce!
Doesn't it just break your heart, man?
His girlfriend was off stage crying too. It was a sight to see.
That's where it really got me. When she showed up and she was in tears, like, dad goodness. Anyway, here we have the final shot. That's your EVO champ right there, Momochi.
I mean, Gamer B is, I believe, 36 years old. He said it himself that he takes the game more seriously than anyone. He didn't qualify for Capcom Pro Tour last year, and he finally not only had a shot, but he had the momentum going into this last match. He'd reset the bracket. He'd brought it back to 3-2. He'd made that crazy 2-hour Elena match. Normally, I remember wrestling, the adrenaline would make you almost cry after losing. The amount of adrenaline he must have put into that Street Fighter match honestly seemed almost sport-like, just from the amount of time he did in a row.
Mm-hmm. And then, I've never been in such a high-stakes position, obviously, to be able to have a similar experience. But when the stick malfunctioned and the game pauses and it's right at the most critical moment, what do you think a competitive player is thinking at that moment, especially a guy like Gamerby? And Momochi, for that matter.
It's hard because you have all that adrenaline and you don't really know where to put it at that point. You're waiting. You don't know even exactly what the ruling is, whether you're going to get the round, how you're going to get the round, etc. So in this case, you had Gamerby and Momochi. Now, Momochi's stick is the one that broke, which I believe cost him the round. However, you can't really quantify whether that hurt him or Gamerby more. Gamerby did have the momentum coming in. He was the one coming down from the losers bracket.
Mm-hmm. We're seeing the pause here.
Yeah, for all we know, that hurt him more than anyone.
I mean, the marathon, right? He again, we're going to talk about the losers finals match, which was just impressive. But sitting up there and playing for that long, it's got to take a toll.
Oh, definitely, and especially the strategy he used with healing is so volatile.
Should we get into it? Do you want to just pull up that match and we can talk about it?
I'd like to talk about it a little bit. So healing is Elena's Ultra 2. And upon taking X amount of damage or focusing it, she gets access to it. And it'll heal anywhere from 100 to, I think, 230 damage at level 1 Ultra, which is all you're ever going to use. Mm-hmm. And so Chun-Li's Fireball does 50 damage. And focused, it eventually goes back down to 0. So Gamerby's strategy here was to take balls, focus backdash, heal back the health, and do it again. And at this point, he has an extra 200 damage pad pretty much every time he goes in. So there's really no reason in his mind to fight until he has that Ultra. Mm-hmm. Because Chun-Li versus Elena is typically considered a bad matchup for a few reasons. Chun-Li's Fireball's hitbox is too big for Elena to slide under, and Chun-Li's one of the few characters that can really kind of outpoke Elena. Mm-hmm. But Elena does have mix-up, and Chun-Li's reversal options are very weak. So with the health pad, it kind of evens up the matchup a lot.
What do you think was that game plan? Because I thought it was just brilliant. I had never seen, obviously, when you're fighting Elena, you can expect to see somebody use healing, maybe more than once. But it was the second he got the Ultra, backdash, 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 healing. And that became the game, right? What's he going to do? I was sitting right at the stage, and I had my camera right on Infiltration. Every single time that Bruce did the healing, Infiltration looked directly at his stick. And on one occasion, I think it cost him. But A, what was that game plan? And B, what do you think Infiltration was looking for when he would look over at his stick?
Well, you can cancel Elena's healing. So I assume that Infiltration was trying to know whether he was going to let it ride out for the maximum amount of health or whether or not he was going to cancel it. A question a lot of people had was why Infiltration didn't pick Ultra 1 with Chun-Li, which lets her punish healing from full screen. But I think it's mostly because Gamerby had been focusing for the healing before he got any damage, and thus before Infiltration would get any Ultra.
Insane. I mean, it was just such an exciting match. It was a shame to see that he took it so far and wasn't able to close it out. Another thing that I thought was funny was Infiltration picking so many characters that you didn't expect to. Had he ever used Abel before?
I think people have heard of him using Abel, and I know him himself. He's said that he's played anywhere from 10 to 30 characters, the whole cast. Me and my friends were talking about this a little bit, and I think it kind of comes down to not only him putting on a show, but the idea that switching matchups in between is kind of difficult. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily easy, even if it's an easier matchup for you. A lot of people consider Chun-Li versus Elena to be in Chun-Li's favor, but it's not necessarily easy to go from matchup to matchup within a single set and make those adjustments necessary. And it's definitely easier for the guy switching characters because he's the one who's prepared to do it.
You know, that whole idea of counter-peeking, as far as I can tell, started to develop more throughout the lifespan of Street Fighter 4.
Right.
But it's not a new strategy. I've heard, a long time ago, I spoke with Afro Cole, and he talked about in Super Turbo days when he counter-picked, he used Dalsim, and then he switched to Chun-Li against a Japanese opponent. And he had the intended effect. He ended up losing with Chun at one point, but the damage had been done, the mind game had been played, and he switched back to Dalsim and was able to win the match.
Right, exactly.
You didn't used to see that at the beginning as much in the beginning of Street Fighter 4's lifespan. but as the game progressed, and we just had ComboFiend on saying that that was their most balanced game, you started to see it more. Is that something that we should all remember that lesson? And when we pick up, for instance, Street Fighter V, think of not just having one main character.
Oh yeah, certainly. Having a counterpickable set of characters is incredible for multiple reasons. Although I do think it gets easier later in the lifespan of a game due to the research, the amount of knowledge, and the videos you have on specific players. I don't know exactly what Momochi's record versus Abel is or anything around that, but the Abel counterpick certainly worked, and maybe he'd seen a flaw in Mochi's gameplay playing versus Shiro or versus someone else that had caused him to believe that was the reason that he should pick Abel.
Mm-hmm. So, Momochi, best
definitely the best player in the world. You can argue semantics, but at this point, he won Capcom Cup, he won EVO, and he's won various other tournaments in between. He's the guy to beat right now.
I love how you always have so-and-so's year. Like this was Infiltration's year before, and now it's Momochi's year. He's qualified several times over for
he's 3,000
exactly. In fact, I was looking at the rankings. Again, there are no American players that have qualified for the Capcom for the Capcom Cup, but there's still plenty of tournaments left. Right. Moving on to the game that is supposed to be America's game, Marvel. KBR took it versus Ray Ray. I'm going to pull up that clip. Give me your initial thoughts on Marvel at EVO, not necessarily the grand finals.
So Marvel at EVO this year was kind of like the antithesis of what everyone thought it was going to be leading up to it. Justin had put on these bounties. The gods had been winning pretty much every tournament as of late. And no one really thought that anyone was going to knock them out. And what happened instead was pretty much every player has elevated to this level where people can beat each other in the right set. And that's not to say the game is necessarily random. I don't truly believe that. But I do think the volatility of the game with the risk reward and how high the damage is has made the game get to this point where it's easier to take someone out than it used to be. Mm-hmm. And it's probably no coincidence that Kane Blue River's high health, easy damage, easy combo team was able to kind of carry him through that.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you mentioned KBR, the last match versus Ray Ray. What did you think of that match?
I mean, I thought KBR took it pretty handily for what he's meant to do. Mm-hmm. His Magneto versus Hulk is definitely a matchup in Magneto's favor, and he was able to successfully counter call by getting in and using the Lariat assist on Sentinel in order to run his game plan.
Now, he wins.
People weren't happy about it, though, I'll tell you that.
Well, yeah, I was sitting next to some people there, and the audience said we're not happy about it at all, and they thought, I like Ray Ray for this. But, very passionate guy. He wins, and then he decides that he wants to give a speech. I was one of the guys in the crowd yelling, give the guy a mic so we can hear what the heck he's saying. Mr. Wizard put the kibosh on that, as I understand. But let me tell you what he actually said as we continue to watch this match. He said, it's not America's game anymore. Of course, Marvel has always been known as America's game.
Right.
He says, but it's not Chile's either. It's for both, and for Mexico, and for Japan, and for everyone else. Marvel is the world because Marvel lives. Is for the world because Marvel lives. How do you feel? I mean, we've gone back and forth on this show talking about whether the game is dead or not. There's still, as was evidenced at EVO, a very passionate, very vocal group of people and players who love the game. Is it that America's over it, but the rest of the world is getting their chance? Is that what's happening? Is that what we're seeing?
I think you're seeing an element of that. You did have 4, I believe, countries in the top 8 with Japan, Mexico, Chile, and the United States. And you've seen these Japanese players just get infinitely better. I remember I played Cross, who got top 8 in a money match last year and absolutely destroyed him. And this year I couldn't touch the guy. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you've seen players from other countries level up. You've seen America kind of lower an entrance for the game. So that's definitely true. But at the same time, as I said, just levels have gone up everywhere. And I think the game's kind of reaching somewhat of a ceiling where people are able to catch up simply because there's not that much further to go.
And that tends to happen with most games, right?
Right.
It gets to a point where the playing field is even.
And then it comes down to pure reads, kind of, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if everybody knows everything, who has the better mind? Is that what it comes down to?
You'd like to hope so. It might be the better team, or it might be the more random team, but yeah, something along those lines.
The idea of abandoning a game. If you're a professional gamer, we have an interview with Justin Wong where he says yeah, I used to be a Third Strike player. I go where the game is. Where's the community? What's new? And I play every game. There's no reason to knock somebody for that, but I do feel a little bit of nostalgia when a game kind of passes, is put out to pasture, so to speak. But we'll see what happens going forward. You saw the EVO staff, both the Cannon Brothers and Mr. Wizard, saying, you better believe that this game will be here again next year. Marvel always brings the hype, and they show a lot of love for it. You happy with that?
Yeah, I'm glad. The game doesn't have a direct replacement, and I think as long as it remains popular and there is no direct replacement, I don't think there is really a reason to do so. Mm-hmm. Do I love Marvel anymore? No, but there certainly are people who do, and the game still had almost a couple 100,000 people watching it, so I don't see a real reason to get rid of it. Will the game get less players? Certainly. This is a game that takes a lot of grinding. People aren't going to put all their time into it with Street Fighter V coming out, but I think it'll be there, and I think you'll have a good show next year again. To be honest, I'm glad Kane won. I know that's not the common sentiment. People wanted like less random teams and players, I guess, to win, but you can't really say this guy's random with all the success he's had. He's just good.
And he's been, I feel like he's been working for that title for a long time.
That guy works, and he'll be the first to admit he works harder than anybody else. That guy knows not only every combo and setup for his team, but for pretty much every other team, and he puts them up on YouTube. Like, this guy puts his entire life into the game. He travels the world for like a game that didn't get a pop bonus at EVO. Mm-hmm. He's part of Team Black Eye, which is Japanese. He lives in Chile, and he is in America most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to another title. I'm not the smash head on our team, but I got into it. Right. I was in there. One of our reporters here at the Daily Dot and also a producer, Ian Barker, was giving me the lowdown. He was explaining to me what was going on. I mean, I'd played the game before, and I'm familiar with all the characters and everything, but certainly not on a competitive level. I was floored by the reaction from the fans. I don't understand what is going on. I don't want to talk shit about the Smash community or the Melee community, but I was completely caught off guard hearing boos. This is in respects to Hungrybox using Jigglypuff and hiding on the like, whatever you call that, edge guarding.
They call planking.
And I'm thinking to myself, that seems like a legitimate strategy. Ian Barker, again, our producer, was saying this is what Mewtwo King is famous for. Why didn't they boo him? I mean, you know a little bit more about Melee than I do. Why would the fans be so upset by either character choice or style of play, be it lame?
I'll break it down into two things. One of which is that Smash has different parents, per se, than the fighting game community.
What do you mean by parents?
When people get into fighting games, and this is definitely old, and people aren't necessarily a fan of the guy, but David Serlin's like Scrub 101 article, Playing to Win, is often linked. It's kind of it's kind of like a prerequisite of being a fighting game player that saying something scrubby doesn't mean it's necessarily not allowed. People in fighting games are willing to accept any strategy and go for it. Whereas in the Smash community, a lot of people come from playing the game casually. It's definitely more common in the Smash community, which means that they're more willing to get upset and believe certain strategies aren't fair. And the second part would be that Smash is a game that's been created by the community. And what I mean by that is the rules are necessitated by the players to the game. They turn off the items, they do this, and that. And without some of these rules, the games would be unplayable because Jigglypuff can run away underneath the stage and be completely unhittable at a certain point in the game. And that's not allowed. The problem is it's not really concrete how you say that. So while he wasn't flying underneath the stage, he was kind of doing the next best thing, which is sitting near the edge. And people wonder whether or not eventually the game will turn into that.
Well, I mean,
But they shouldn't be booing him like that.
It was ridiculous. And then, he tweeted this out. Hungrybox tweeted this out, and I'm going to read it. And fair warning, there's some vulgar language in this. But he tweeted out that he got his first death threat, which in reality was more of a death wish, right? Somebody on Reddit told him, "Holy shit, watching your camping, worthless ass at EVO made me want to die. Kill yourself, you worthless, pathetic piece of shit. You honestly ruined this game. You drive away potential fans of Melee because you're an F-word piece of shit. Why do you even play this game? Blah, 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 on and on. Please kill yourself." Are you kidding me? Is it really that? I was watching it, and I was like, that's a viable strategy. That's a mind game. That's a chess move. That's a calculated strategy.
And he's playing a character that not many other people are playing. You'd think normally in that situation people would be cheering him on, but no, people are upset. The Smash community is a lot of drama, and
as you keep talking, I'm running some raw footage that I shot there. This is him still in pools beating Leffen, who was expected to win, and I see this guy win this match and the passion involved. You'll see it right here. Like he's got it already coming up, and we're surrounded by all these players. Check it out. Okay, the nice thing to do here is say hello and then check it out. I see this passion, immediately burst into tears, and I think, wow, that is somebody deserving of being a member of the FGC. I mean, here you get, it was hilarious, right? I don't know if you saw.
He hit the TV, and the guy who owned the TV got a little upset about it, right?
Yeah, those CRTs are few and far between these days. But again, look at this, man. You're gonna tell me this guy doesn't deserve? He ended up in second place at the end of EVO, but just as worthy as anybody else, and it frustrated me, and it caught me off guard to see some of that hate that he got.
I mean, it's just a step that people are going to make. And the Smash community and the Street Fighter community are still a little separate. We'll see if they come together. I don't know if they have as much stake in EVO necessarily as a lot of Street Fighter players do, but they probably should. And it's just down to maturing, you know? People can say whatever they want on the internet. They weren't necessarily saying that in person. They were booing. But yeah, there's really no reason to be hating on this guy like this for doing what he's allowed to do in game.
Exactly. All right, we're going to move on to the next game.
Although I do want to make one closing comment on Smash.
Lay it on me.
Which is, I think, one of the interesting things about it is that all the top players of the game do speak English. Mm-hmm. And so for the English-speaking community, it kind of lets us, I believe, identify with them more and, in this case, get more into the drama. Mm-hmm. It's less likely that a player is going to boo an international player who they can't really identify with, who they don't really know necessarily what kind of a person they are. Street Fighter is dominated by people from other countries, etc. So I think it's kind of made it into more of a dramatic show. And the game's been around for 16 years? Mm-hmm. So it's definitely kind of a different playing field.
We have a really good interview with PPMD up on our site as well. So approachable, one of the nicest guys. I was struck as well, since we're still on the Melee topic, this gentleman here, PPMD, very open about his depression and how he's been dealing with that, asking his fans to have patience with him. He's trying to work through some things. And then he got third place at EVO. Again, these, in my eyes, without sounding like, too sappy here, these are champions in my mind. And they put just as much effort. And again, it frustrated me to see that. And this is another thing that I loved. This is what Justin Wong said. You know, I was standing there, right when I told you saw the raw footage that I shot. I was standing right there. There was a big screen that the game was being projected on, and Justin Wong was standing right underneath it, looking up, clapping, and just as into it as everybody else. He says, I'm a Capcom player, and I enjoy what I just saw with Jigglypuff. So, I mean, I think that, I guess that's the sentiment that I share, is that if you can do it in the game, and it's not considered broken, then I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do it.
No, totally, and people just have to accept that.
All right, we're going to move on to Mortal...
It's not going to kill your game, I promise.
Mortal Kombat X. This is Sonic Fox. He started off with in the grand finals with Katana, and then switched to who we know him and love him for, which is his Aaron Black. Again, a 17-year-old kid utilizing that counter-picking strategy. Get as much mileage as you can with one character, and then switch it just to make your opponent stay on his toes. He reset the bracket and brought it back. Your thoughts on... because Mortal Kombat is one of those OG games, right? Of course, you think back to its inception, and you think there's a lot of guys that are in that community, including, Pig of the Hut. These are older guys. A 17-year-old comes in and just wrecks shop. He's had a lot of success in NRS games, but still, this is a 17-year-old kid who came in and
his third EVO win.
So, I mean, and not only that, not too long ago, he won the ESL Season 1 finale, 60K.
Yeah.
And now he just won EVO, of course. The idea that there's fresh blood, right? I mean, this is that to me is what speaks to this whole esports thing, that these younger players are coming in and doing really well. Your thoughts on his performance in general?
I mean, it's hard to call it surprising. As you mentioned, he's won most things leading up to this, and he's had this strategy, and he's had, certainly as the time as a younger kid, and he's played it pretty much every game that he can. He's done everything he could to work towards this, and you almost wish there was more of a story, but he did what he came out to do and what everyone knew him to do, kind of like the Smash 4 Champion Zero. I mean, just like you knew these guys were going to win.
Since I haven't gotten tired of plugging the coverage that we did, we have a short little interview with Sonic Fox. We caught up with him. We asked him, basically how he picks characters, what his mindset is. The most humble kid, but very much so a kid. I definitely got the teenager vibe from him.
He really is, and and I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, me either.
Every time you ever go to a tournament, if people ask him to play, he says yes. He wants to play with anyone. He wants to get better at the game, and he doesn't have this kind of like top player privilege vibe that you see out of a lot of other people.
We asked him what he was going to do with all his earnings. I don't know what I expected him to say, but I was happy with his response, which was college. So I was like, good for him, buddy. There you go, bud. The thing that surprised me was we asked him, well, what are you going to do now that EVO's over, right? He says, well, I finally have some time to be a gamer again, and I really want to pick up Killer Instinct. Your thoughts on Killer Instinct? Because I would think, I mean, it's a great game. It has a huge following, and it had a great showing at EVO, but I don't know why I didn't expect to hear him say Killer Instinct.
Well, think about how it's cool that ComboFiend has so much say in Street Fighter V. And then think about the fact that Keats literally has all the say in making Killer Instinct. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, it's kind of cool that like a community person, someone who's done well in games, I remember we got Top 8 and Tatsunoko versus Capcom, has the ability to put as much input as they want into a game. So I think NRS and Killer Instinct community have been kind of close. You see a lot of player tie-overs like CD Jr. and like Rico Suave. So it's not that surprising to me. It's kind of refreshing.
Mm-hmm. And our boys down at Ultra Arcade sponsored some players that did really well as well for Killer Instinct. My God did really well.
Base as well.
You know, they came back on him, but he did well, and we're proud of those guys. Moving on, I want to talk about some of the EVO moments, so to speak. First of all, we didn't mention we were talking about Melee, but the fact that they gave him the golden fight sticks, that
and
was
not
hilarious.
Persona.
Why not?
Persona did not get them.
They should have given him the Melee ones.
Probably that's what people are saying, yeah.
But it was hilarious. You know, it's like there's those pictures of I think Zero after he won Smash where he's like, "What the heck am I supposed to do with this?"
Yeah, it was on a PP as well. Yeah, just like what?
Enjoy the paperweight. People were saying. But speaking of Mad Cat's stick, coming to the rescue when that stick malfunctioned, it's got to be embarrassing. The EG players contractually play on Razor sticks,
right?
Razor stick failed at the most heated moment, and a Mad Cat stick came in to save the day. That's got to be embarrassing.
Yeah, for sure. And I believe that problem is actually somewhat documented, so it becomes even more so embarrassing. I guess it's really just a wake-up call to them to make sure that it works. At the same time, it could have been something out of their control. Mm-hmm. It sucks, but I don't really think anyone's going to not buy a Razor stick because of it. And if they do, at least do some research before that's why you make your decision. At the same time, I've had a Mad Catz fight stick since I started playing, and it's literally been using it for 7 years now. So
me as well. Switch out the buttons on it, and it's working just fine.
That's it. I have the same JLF, the little fight stick. Yeah, same one.
The other thing that came out of nowhere for EVO was that Jamie Lee Curtis was there cosplaying as Vega. I saw that Vega cosplayer, and I was like, "Huh, that seems like an older person."
That's
who
a girl
would that be?
for sure.
Yeah, well, yes. I think the chest protuberances maybe had something to do with that. But that I thought was really cool. It had come
Very
out
clever
months ago.
as well, yeah.
You know, and the funny thing is, I didn't see her. I saw her, but I didn't realize it was her. I did, however, run into a guy that maybe out here in Streamland you won't know, Christopher Guest from This Is Spinal Tap, and
right.
I took a picture. I did a triple take. I was like, is that Christopher Guest?
No, I knew it. Yeah.
But I did put it together that Christopher Guest is Jamie Lee Curtis's husband. So I should have put it together. What had happened was months ago that some interview came out.
So this was before you knew Jamie Lee was here?
This is before. I saw him, and I saw this kid, and this kid had already cracked me up because I was like, okay, without sounding racist here, white
DJ,
kid dressed as DJ, right? And I was like, okay, he likes what he likes. But it cracked me up. I saw Christopher Guest. I literally did a triple take, and he gave me a look like, yes, it's me. And I went up and asked him, what are you doing here? All that thing. He's actually cosplaying as Dr. Boskanovich.
From Tekken, right?
From Tekken. And he said he was having a great time, but he was definitely there because his son loved it. His son looked like he was having the greatest time of his life. It had come out in some Access Hollywood or one of these TV interviews months and months ago that Jamie Lee Curtis was talking about how she's hip and that she was going to take her son to the biggest fighting game tournament in the world. And everybody in the Twitter sphere and on the RCAPs were like, holy crap, Jamie Lee Curtis is going to be at EVO. I was actually keeping an eye out for her. Didn't see her. Then this happened. And I just think that's really cool. I'm
kind of proud of the community as well, just because, and maybe it's just because she disguised herself, but you didn't really hear any negativity. I know she said it was a great weekend of her life, so yeah, it worked out. She came. That's awesome. She cosplayed. That's even more awesome. So good to her.
Mm-hmm. The other EVO moment, and this one you could argue whether it was forced or not, was our boy Casey Dillon. GG Epic, GG Onisan
Oh yeah.
doing his thing. I don't have the video, but pulling off his shirt. The thing is, I do have respect for it because I don't know if I could have done something like that. You know, it does take balls to rip your shirt off, and as was stated on stream, show off those unnecessary pepperonis. But ripping your shirt off in front of all those people on stream is one thing. Putting the shirt on Punko is another thing. How do you feel about this whole, this desire to be a part of the moment? Presumably inspired by what K-Brad did, and of course CEO lends itself to that, and they encourage that. But the idea that in the FGC and potentially going forward into more of this esports land, that you need to make a name for yourself and have something that you do that's flashy, that generates buzz, and so on and so forth.
Well, it's like, I know it's frowned upon in professional sports. You had like Terrell Owens and his Sharpies and various other football incidents. For the fighting game community, I don't think it's done anything bad enough for us, and I think the community comes from the internet so much and from the fans so much that for now, I don't really see any problem with it. Mm-hmm. And it was funny, and I don't think Punko was offended, and the stream certainly loved it, so I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it was hilarious. Again, I was shooting in the crowd. The crowd went absolutely nuts. People in the crowd started ripping their shirts off and doing helicopters with them, and it was just like complete mayhem.
I know Strider beat an 8-year-old with like 3 perfects or something like that. There was a bunch of interestingly streamed matches for sure.
That was hilarious. I mean, it looked like he was testing out the kid the first round, and then he was like download complete and proceeded to get triple perfect on him. I saw that kid put out a little vlog about his experience, and he seemed very not beat up about it. He's like, you know what, this is inspirational. I'm going to come back for you, 81 Strider. I love to see things like that, especially because it's new blood.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. The other EVO moment that I thought was hilarious, and as we saw, got a lot of play on even on ESPN, was the premature celebration during the Guilty Gear match. I wasn't in the room, but
I saw it on SportsCenter this morning.
Exactly. Anecdotally, I was about to do an interview. Sorry, here I am plugging again with Matt Dahlgren of Capcom. So I wasn't in the room for that. But ComboFiend comes out and he says, "Did y'all see that? Oh my God, the most hilarious thing just happened. This dude thought he was done. He got up, and then his opponent proceeded to do like the most OG training room combo on him and completely wreck him." How hilarious. I think that, I mean, I feel bad for the guy, but he looked like he was a good sport. He put his head down.
It was not only hilarious, but interesting that Ogawa, his opponent, was so able to tap into that. You see him, he literally, and as ComboFiend said, he does the most optimal combo he could possibly do in that situation. Funnily enough, it hits counter hit. You saw Woshige run up and try to mash a button and gets counter hit for even more damage. So the mixture of Woshige doing that, Ogawa's ability to recognize it, and the fact that that's kind of something that could really only happen in a video game is really interesting. And the fact that it happened on the EVO main stage is very unfortunate for Woshige, who ended up losing the tournament.
Yeah.
But obviously it was funny and interesting enough for it to show up on SportsCenter. So
yeah, and that's something that we've been seeing a lot more. Of course, K-Brad, that was a viral moment that most likely would have ended up on shows like that anyway.
Who knows if that's what got this on SportsCenter itself, K-Brad's thing. So yeah, we're just like slowly pyramiding up.
So, but there's been, in the air, the conversation that I forget the name of the commentator that said it's a bunch of nerds playing games. I'll never get into that. That's never a sport. And just basically shit all over or competitive gaming. There was a backlash against that. Then you had ESPN reporters writing articles and doing more coverage. Are we about to see... Are they finally figuring it out? And are we about to see ESPN and other mainstream news outlets, sports media outlets, starting to cover this more seriously?
I'm not sure if we're about to see it, but we're about to see the struggle that comes to get it. We're finally getting to the point where like games are way too big not to cover, and there's way too many personality here for them not to want to tap into that. So you're going to see this mixture of the old school sports community having to kind of deal with this and see whether or not they push us out or let us in.
Do you think we need that? Do you look forward to that? Is that who cares about TV anymore? I live on the computer and I watch streams on Twitch and I watch videos on YouTube.
Do we need it? I guess not necessarily. Justin Wong's been playing fighting games when there were no streams. We got stuff like that. But I think if we want to reach the next level of money, of competition, and of gameplay for the spectators, then yeah, we do.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of competitors, Mike, how did you do at EVO? What did you enter and how'd you do, man?
Officially, I had entered Mortal Kombat, Marvel 3, and the Blaze Blue side tournament and qualifier for Arc Revo. I ended up having to DQ myself from both main tournament games, Mortal Kombat and Marvel, to play my anime games. In the 3v3 tournament, I got third, my team, which was Rylander and Sunfish, also from Texas. Unfortunately, it's a single elimination tournament, so I didn't even play once going into the winner's semifinals. And then we got reverse OCV'd after one of our teammates was the first thing, so that's kind of embarrassing. However, the team that won is definitely deserving to go. That's a team of Super Kawaii, Desu, SG, and Lich, two of them from New York and one of them from Seattle. Interestingly enough, they're going to be going to Japan to play in the Arc Revolution, the company that makes the game, Cup qualifier. Well, they just won the qualifier, so they're going to play in the Cup itself, which is going to be awesome. The Guilty Gear team as well gets to go. And what was really cool is that SKD, Super Quiet SU, was going, actually won the Blaze Blue singles tournament, which included Dogra, last year's Japanese second place Blaze Blue finisher at EVO, and the Arc Revolution Cup winner from last year. So it's showing that in anime games, which way further than Street Fighter, we have at least one player who can really kind of match up. So good on him, and I'm really looking forward and rooting for them to do well at Arc Revolution.
Well, good luck to them. But you mentioned Arc Revolution, the Cup. The fact that all these game makers are now really taking a significant step into covering or giving some kind of structure to their matches or their games. You have Mortal Kombat, of course. We've argued whether or not it's just more than anything publicity and advertising, but they did the ESL tournaments. Street Fighter and Capcom with the Pro Tour, and you mentioned the ArcSys Cup. Is that where we're headed, where these games are really going to take more control over their games and we're starting to see more of a league?
Yes, I definitely do think that, and I think that's the precursor to other companies picking them up as well. Because they're the people who have the obvious legal rights to the game. They're the people who have the obvious vested monetary interest in the game. So they're the ones who kind of have the job, I guess, of putting it and taking it off the ground. And from there, you might have like fight stick companies. You might have the console companies themselves. I know PS4 put a lot of interest in Capcom for making this game. So yeah, it's up to the companies themselves to kind of put the game out there and then see where it goes from there.
The last thing I want to talk about before we close the show, and I promise not to end on a downer because maybe I'll say something else after this, but Golden Boy Neo.
Yeah.
He wins Marvel, or I'm sorry, he competes in top 8, he gets a medal. By the way, he had like the most prime spot there with his booth selling shirts and posters and other merchandise. And then you find out, Twitter starts blowing up, that they stole his bag. They found it in the bathroom. His bag, all of his money's gone. His EVO medal is gone. I don't know why, for some reason, that makes me feel even worse about it. And there's a lot of controversy now. We'll get to the controversy. How do you feel about the fact that, again, it's kind of, I hate to have to bring it up, but it's not, the saying, it's not an FGC event if something doesn't get stolen.
Is there a rap for the FGC having, its members who might do things like this? Certainly, but I think if a backpack was left out at any event, stuff like this happens. I don't think you can blame that on the FGC.
You're right.
And I don't want to shame Neo for doing it, obviously. I mean, at the same time, it's unfortunate and your bag should not get stolen. But of course, having it on you at all times is the smart approach to things.
I would think that if you have a fat chunk of change in there, you'd be holding on to it like this.
Not only would that not leave my back, it probably wouldn't leave my bank account, Like, I can't believe he had that just laying somewhere.
And, the controversy then was, and this is unsubstantiated, it hasn't been proven.
A lot of people can't believe that.
But a lot of people say it's a scam. He's doing it, and there's already the GoFundMe, and the goal is $6,000, and I think he's already recovered quite a bit of that. What does that say about the FGC, that people think he's scamming it?
I think whether or not it is and whether or not it isn't, there's no evidence behind it. There's no real reason to believe it based on what he is. And no matter what his personality is, I don't think that's the first assumption you can make. And it's unfortunate that people are making the claim, but I don't think it's really something worth discussing.
Then we'll move on. If you missed Ray Chun, who's usually on this show, he went to Korea. He's on vacation. We're looking forward to it. He is going to go to Cafe. We used to think it was Cafe ID. Cafe'd.
It's called Cafe'd.
Cafe'd.
Like arcade.
Exactly. And he's going to be doing a scene report from Cafe. Awesome. He's going to seek out Punko, and then we're going to Skype him in and we'll talk about it. But thank you very much for joining us. That does it for us on our EVO special. Mike, as always, consummate pro, El Donkey over here, bringing the questions and the analysis. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it too, and thanks guys for watching.